Discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. It's choosing long-term strength over short-term pleasure. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as restricting, tedious, or even painful, something forced upon them by external authority or circumstances. But true discipline, the kind we'll explore today, isn't about restriction. It's about mastering yourself so thoroughly that you're no longer enslaved by impulsive desires, fleeting emotions, or momentary temptations. Think about it. How many times have you regretted a decision made out of laziness, procrastination, or instant gratification? Every act of discipline you perform now is an investment that compounds over time, empowering you to build a life shaped by your own intentions rather than random impulses or external pressures. In our modern world, where distractions are constant and gratification is instant, the ability to maintain self-discipline is more critical than ever. We live in an age of relentless digital bombardment, notifications pulling us from tasks, apps engineered to addict us, and an endless cycle of consumption that can leave us exhausted and unfulfilled. Without discipline, we're easily swept away by these forces, drifting from one superficial pleasure to another without ever achieving deeper satisfaction. Discipline provides the anchor that keeps us rooted, focused, and clear-minded, guiding us toward meaningful achievements rather than temporary highs. It's the difference between spending hours scrolling aimlessly on your phone and investing the same time learning, training, or growing in a direction you truly value. Today we'll dive deeply into the philosophies and practical wisdom of two of history's greatest advocates of disciplined living, Marcus Aurelius and Miyamoto Musashi. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, wasn't merely a powerful ruler but also a dedicated practitioner of rigorous self-reflection and self-control. His personal writings, known today as meditations, reveal a man constantly challenging himself to rise above impulses and emotions, focusing instead on reason, duty, and inner strength. His philosophy teaches that external circumstances don't control us unless we allow them to. He believed that by mastering our reactions and embracing discipline, we attain freedom, the ultimate power over our lives. Miyamoto Musashi, on the other hand, was a legendary samurai from 17th century Japan whose discipline became legendary through his deeds. A skilled swordsman undefeated in over 60 duels, Musashi didn't rely solely on physical prowess, but on extraordinary mental discipline. His celebrated work, The Book of Five Rings, outlines the mindset of a warrior who sees every moment as an opportunity to train, improve, and perfect himself. Musashi emphasizes that discipline isn't merely about routine or rigidity, but about constantly refining your mind, skills, and spirit until your actions become effortless. It's a relentless pursuit of mastery, where discipline becomes a path rather than just a practice. Both Aurelius and Musashi lived in vastly different worlds, yet their message about self-discipline aligns powerfully. They teach us that discipline isn't about restricting our freedom, rather it is the gateway to real freedom, clarity, and personal excellence. By embracing their wisdom, you'll see how discipline can radically change your perspective and your daily life. We'll explore these timeless secrets and provide practical guidance to help you apply ruthless self-discipline in your own modern context. Whether you seek greater success, deeper fulfillment, or simply more control over your daily habits and decisions, understanding the disciplined mindset of these legendary figures will guide you toward becoming the strongest and freest version of yourself. For Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics, discipline was never about external control. It was about internal mastery. It was about becoming so anchored in your values and reason that nothing outside of you could shake your peace. You have power over your mind, not outside events, Marcus wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. That single line contains the entire foundation of Stoic thought. The world will always be unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Plans will collapse. Pain, loss, failure, they're all unavoidable. But the one thing you will always own, completely and irrevocably, is your mind. Your choices, your thoughts, your reactions. And it's within this inner domain that true discipline begins. To the Stoics, freedom didn't mean doing whatever you want. It meant being free from the tyranny of emotion, desire, and fear. In other words, discipline isn't chains. It's the key that unlocks mental clarity and emotional independence. And that starts with a shift in perspective. You don't control what happens to you, but you absolutely control how you interpret and respond to it. When something bad happens, let's say you lose a job, miss an opportunity, or get betrayed by someone you trust, the undisciplined mind spirals. It blames, it complains, it wallows. The disciplined mind, on the other hand, pauses. It asks, what can I do with this? How can I grow from this? That mental pivot is the essence of Stoicism and the gateway to real power. Discipline, then, becomes a kind of inner compass. It points you toward what matters, regardless of what the world throws your way. When you're disciplined, you're no longer at the mercy of your environment. You're no longer reactive. You begin to act instead of being acted upon. This is why Marcus Aurelius journaled every morning and night. He wasn't writing for show. He was training his mind to stay in control, to face the chaos of being an emperor and a man with a kind of stillness most people never reach. He was reminding himself daily, this is what I can control. This is what I must let go of. In your own life, you may not rule an empire, but the same principle applies. Maybe you feel overwhelmed by things outside of your control, your job, your finances, your relationships, or even global events. The Stoic response is not to surrender to helplessness, but to double down on the one thing you do control: yourself, your habits, your focus, your attitude. That's where discipline lives. Take something as simple as a morning routine. Waking up early, avoiding your phone first thing, drinking water, exercising, or journaling. These might seem like small actions, but they are radical acts of self-discipline in a world that rewards passivity. When you consistently wake up on your terms, not because you have to, but because you choose to, you're reclaiming control. That's freedom. You're not a slave to the snooze button or to external obligations. You're asserting your will. The same goes for fitness. Every time you move your body when you don't feel like it, you're proving that your higher self, not your cravings or laziness, is in charge. Even with money, discipline transforms everything. Financial discipline isn't about deprivation, it's about sovereignty. When you budget, when you save, when you live below your means, you're creating space between you and desperation. You're freeing yourself from debt, from anxiety, from the constant chase. That's Stoic. That's power, and it all starts with simple daily actions that align with your values instead of your moods. The truth is, life without discipline feels free on the surface, but underneath, it's chaos. You eat whatever you want, spend impulsively, scroll endlessly, and it feels good for a moment. But later, you feel lost, scattered, anxious. Discipline flips that. It asks you to delay gratification in the short term, but in exchange, it gives you peace, confidence, and control over your future. It's delayed pleasure for lasting fulfillment. The best part is, you don't need to do everything at once. Stoicism teaches that control is built moment by moment, decision by decision. Start with one area of your life. Ask yourself, where am I letting external circumstances dictate my inner state? Where am I giving away my power? Maybe it's how you react when plans change. Maybe it's how you respond to criticism. Maybe it's your morning, your money, or your screen time. Pick one and apply discipline ruthlessly, not to punish yourself, but to liberate yourself. Because the truth is, you are always training your mind, whether you realize it or not. You're either training it to obey your values or to obey your impulses. You're either moving toward freedom or toward dependency. And in a world full of noise, distraction, and indulgence, self-discipline isn't just a virtue, it's a rebellion. A quiet rebellion against everything that wants to pull you away from your highest self. So let Marcus's words echo in your mind the next time you're tempted to quit, complain, or escape. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let that be your compass. Let that be your standard. And remember, every disciplined choice you make is a brick in the foundation of a life you fully control. A life guided not by chaos but by clarity. Not by chance but by character. That is stoic discipline. That is real freedom. If you wish to control others, you must first control yourself. These words from Miyamoto Musashi aren't just the advice of a warrior. They are a universal principle for anyone who wants to live with strength, clarity, and purpose. Because before you can lead others, succeed in your craft, or rise to any challenge in life, you have to first do battle with your own inner chaos. Musashi understood that the greatest war is not with the world, but with the self, the part of you that wants to quit, that wants comfort, that resists effort, that fears failure. And he believed that the only way to overcome that internal resistance was through relentless, consistent, disciplined training. Master yourself or be mastered. There is no middle ground. Miyamoto Musashi wasn't a philosopher in the traditional sense. He didn't write long meditations like Marcus Aurelius, but he lived his philosophy, and the Book of Five Rings, his manual on strategy and life, is a product of pure lived discipline. Musashi was born in 1584 in feudal Japan and became a swordsman at an incredibly young age. By 13, he had already fought and won his first duel. By the end of his life, he was undefeated in over 60 duels, often against the most skilled and deadly warriors of his time. But his victories weren't about brute strength or flashy techniques. They were the result of thousands of hours of disciplined practice, observation, and inner reflection. He trained alone, lived simply, and focused obsessively on mastering not just the sword, but himself. Musashi's lifestyle was extreme by modern standards. He often lived without shelter, slept little, and ate simply. He avoided luxury and comfort because he believed they made the mind soft. His idea was clear. If you train yourself to be comfortable in discomfort, to stay calm in chaos, to act decisively under pressure, then no enemy, no obstacle, no external force can control you, and that's what made him unstoppable. He didn't rely on the external world to give him strength. His strength came from within. Now, most of us aren't going to become wandering swordsmen, but the core of Musashi's philosophy applies to every single one of us. We all face battles every day, battles with procrastination, with fear, with distraction, with self-doubt. Musashi's life shows us that the only way to win these battles is through consistency, through small, repeated acts of discipline. It's not about dramatic transformations or once-in-a-while effort. It's about showing up every single day and doing the work, even when it's boring, even when no one is watching. So, how do you apply Musashi's mindset in modern life? Start with your rituals, your daily habits. Musashi's life was built on training, and not just physical training. He also practiced calligraphy, painting, and poetry. To him, discipline wasn't just about fighting, it was about sharpening the mind, refining the spirit, and focusing attention. You can take that same mindset into your own career, health, or creative work. If you're trying to build a business, learn a skill, or improve your health, it's not about motivation or talent. It's about carving out time each day to train. Let's say you're working on your career. Apply Musashi's method. Set a time every day when you work deeply. No distractions, no multitasking. Turn it into a sacred ritual. You're not just answering emails or checking tasks, you're training. Or if it's your health, make your workouts non-negotiable. Rain or shine, tired or energized, you show up, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's not perfect. That's how you train your mind to obey, not your feelings, but your principles. And if it's your creativity, whether you're writing, designing, composing, then Musashi's model is even more important. Create daily, not because you feel inspired, but because it's time to create. Creativity is not magic, it's discipline. It's the same muscle as swordsmanship, focus, repetition, refinement. The more you do it, the sharper your blade becomes. Musashi also believed in detachment, not in a cold, emotionless way, but in a strategic way. He knew that being too attached to comfort, success, praise, or even technique could make you rigid, and rigidity is death in combat and in life. So ask yourself, what are you clinging to that weakens you? Maybe it's your phone, your routines, your comforts, or even your self-image. Part of mastering yourself is learning what to let go of, what to walk away from, what to discipline out of your life. Musashi once said, "Do nothing which is of no use." That's a brutal standard, but it's also incredibly liberating. Imagine stripping your life down to only the useful, only the essential. What would that look like for you? Here's a practical way to start living like Musashi. Choose one habit, just one, something small but meaningful. Maybe it's waking up at the same time every day. Maybe it's writing for 30 minutes. Maybe it's journaling or meditating. Whatever it is, commit to it for the next 30 days, not as a challenge, not as an experiment, but as a test of your self-mastery. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't negotiate with yourself. Just do it every single day and watch what happens. Because the real power of Musashi's method is that it builds something invisible. Confidence. Not the fake, loud kind, but the quiet, immovable kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. That you'll show up, rain or shine. That you can do hard things. That you are not ruled by mood or circumstance. That you are the master of your own life. Master yourself or be mastered. That's the choice Musashi offers us. It's simple, but not easy. It requires discomfort. It requires sacrifice. But it also offers something priceless in return: strength, clarity, and freedom. Not someday, but now, in every decision you make. So what's your next move? What's the one habit you'll master starting today? Because this isn't just a philosophy for warriors. It's a philosophy for anyone who's tired of being controlled by distractions, by fear, by impulses, and is ready to reclaim control through discipline. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one habit at a time. We've all been there, fired up after watching an inspiring video or reading a quote that hits just right. You feel like you can take on the world. You make big plans, start a new diet, begin a workout routine, commit to waking up early, but then the motivation fades. Maybe the next day, maybe within the hour, and suddenly the energy is gone. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow or next week. And slowly, without even noticing, you slip back into your old patterns. This is why relying on motivation is a losing game. It's unreliable, it's emotional, and it disappears the moment life gets inconvenient. Motivation is a mood, Discipline is a decision, and decisions, real daily committed decisions, are what build a life. The philosopher Epictetus said, "Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily." He didn't say sometimes. He didn't say when you feel like it. He said daily, because real transformation happens when you show up no matter what. When you stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start saying, "This is just what I do." That's the power of discipline. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It just acts. Modern psychology backs this up. Motivation, according to neuroscientists, is connected to the brain's dopamine system. It spikes when you anticipate a reward, but it drops quickly when that reward feels far away, uncertain, or difficult. That's why it's so easy to get excited about starting something new, but so hard to stay consistent when the results take time. Your brain gets bored. It wants instant payoff. But discipline is what steps in when the dopamine dips. Discipline is what keeps you going when your brain starts whining, "This is hard," or "This is boring," or "Let's just skip today." And here's the truth. The people who succeed long-term, whether in fitness, creativity, business, or personal growth, aren't the most motivated. They're the most consistent. They've built systems that work even when their emotions don't. They've created habits so embedded in their identity that skipping them feels unnatural. They don't rely on the wave of inspiration. They rely on the structure they've built beneath it. Let's talk about that structure, because it's not magic. It's practical, repeatable, and completely within your reach. The first technique is habit stacking. This is simple but incredibly effective. The idea is to attach a new habit to something you already do regularly. For example, if you always make coffee in the morning, you can stack journaling or stretching onto that habit. Instead of trying to build something entirely from scratch, you piggyback on an existing behavior. That makes the new habit feel more automatic, less like a chore. You're not reinventing your entire life. You're just anchoring good behavior to routines that already exist. The second tool is accountability. Discipline thrives in environments where someone or something is watching. That doesn't mean you need a coach yelling at you 24/7, but you do need a mechanism that keeps you honest. This could be a friend who checks in on your progress, a public commitment, or even a habit tracking app that shows your streak. When your progress is visible and tracked, it's harder to make excuses. You turn discipline into a game of integrity. You said you would do it, so do it. Another critical piece is environment design. We often underestimate how much our surroundings shape our behavior. If your phone is always within reach, if your workspace is cluttered, if junk food is the first thing you see when you open the fridge, you're making discipline harder than it needs to be. Change your environment and your behavior will follow. Put your phone in another room when you work. Lay your workout clothes out the night before. Make your default choices easier and smarter, so you don't have to rely on willpower all day long. Willpower is limited, environment is constant. Here's the beauty of discipline. It doesn't require you to feel good. It doesn't care if you're tired, bored, or uninspired. It just asks for action. It builds momentum, and that momentum builds identity. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you're voting for the person you want to become. And those votes add up, not in a week, not even in a month. But over time, they create an unshakable foundation. That's why it's so dangerous to wait for motivation. Motivation is external. Discipline is internal. Motivation says, "I'll act when I feel ready." Discipline says, "I'll act, and the feeling will follow." And most of the time it does. The funny thing is, once you start acting, the motivation you were waiting for often shows up after you take the first step. But it's discipline that gets you moving. So how do you begin building discipline right now? Start by designing a simple, structured routine. one that aligns with your goals and your values. This doesn't need to be complex or rigid, it just needs to be clear and repeatable. Ask yourself, what time will I wake up? When will I do focus work? What will I avoid during those hours? When will I train or create or read? Write it down, make it visible, treat it like a contract, and then build an accountability system around it. This could be as simple as a daily check mark on your calendar, a text to a friend, or a journal where you reflect every evening on what you did or didn't do. The point isn't perfection. The point is awareness. If you miss a day, don't collapse into guilt or excuses. Just reset. Pick it back up. Discipline isn't about never failing. It's about always returning. Here's your challenge. Within the next 24 hours, create a daily structure that supports one of your goals. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's your creative work, maybe it's learning a new skill or improving your mindset. Whatever it is, write down when, where, and how you'll engage with that goal every day. Make it specific, make it visible, and then stick to it. For 1 week, then 2, then a month. Don't wait to feel ready, just begin. Because in the end, motivation is a spark, but discipline, that's the firewood. That's what keeps the flame alive long after the excitement fades. The more you lean on discipline, the more you realize you don't need to be inspired, you just need to keep going. That's where the real power is, not in the hype, but in the habit, not in the idea, but in the execution. Epictetus was right. Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. That's the blueprint, that's the path. Not someday, not when it feels good, but today, especially today. You can't control the world, but you can control how you see it. And that's where mental discipline begins. The Stoics didn't just train their bodies or their habits, they trained their minds. Every day they prepared themselves not just for action, but for adversity. They understood that most of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens, but from how we interpret it. As Seneca famously said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. That single sentence contains a lifetime's worth of wisdom. Because how many times have you replayed a situation in your head, imagined the worst, panicked over something that never actually happened? The Stoics would say, this is unnecessary suffering, it's optional, and the way to fight it is with a disciplined mind. So how do we develop that kind of mental strength? The ability to stay calm when things go wrong, focused when life gets messy, and resilient when we're tested? The answer lies in a few core Stoic practices. They're simple but powerful. The kind of tools you can use every single day to become mentally tougher, clearer, and more in control of your own emotions. Let's break them down. First, let's talk about negative visualization. This is one of the most misunderstood but essential Stoic techniques. The idea is to imagine regularly that the things and people you value might one day be gone. Not to make yourself sad, but to make yourself grateful. Instead of taking life for granted, you become more aware of its fragility, and that awareness helps you value it more deeply. For example, you might visualize losing your job, your health, or even someone you love. Not in a morbid or obsessive way, but briefly, intentionally. You're not trying to panic yourself, you're training your mind to be ready to appreciate what you have while it lasts and to reduce the shock if and when hardship comes. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly. He reminded himself every morning that the people he'd meet would likely be rude, selfish, or irrational. He wasn't being cynical, he was being realistic. and by mentally preparing for that reality, he trained himself to respond with patience instead of anger. That's negative visualization at work. You expect discomfort, so you're never thrown off by it. You imagine loss, so gratitude grows in its place. Another vital Stoic practice is journaling, not as a diary, but as a form of self-examination. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is essentially a journal. He wasn't writing to impress anyone, he was writing to strengthen himself, to remind himself of what mattered, to clarify his thoughts, to confront his own weaknesses, and you can do the same. Spend just 10 minutes at the beginning or end of your day asking yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I lose control? What could I do better tomorrow? This kind of reflection is discipline. It's not glamorous, but it works. Over time, it rewires your thinking. You begin to catch your reactive tendencies. You start to see patterns. And most importantly, you begin to separate what's within your control from what isn't, which is the core of Stoic resilience. A third technique is what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. This means intentionally stepping outside your comfort zone, not because you have to, but because you choose to. Seneca used to practice sleeping on the floor, eating plain food, or wearing rough clothes, not out of self-punishment, but to remind himself, if I had to live like this, I could. In today's world, this might mean taking cold showers, fasting occasionally, walking instead of driving, or leaving your phone at home for a day. These acts sound small, but they build incredible strength. They train you to be less dependent on luxury, more comfortable with challenge, and more appreciative of what you usually take for granted. Let's look at a quick story to bring this to life. Imagine two people face the same setback, losing a job. One of them spirals into panic. They weren't prepared. Their identity was tied to the job. They have no fallback plan, no emotional buffer. The second person, however, has practiced Stoic mental discipline. They've visualized this possibility before. They've trained themselves to be adaptable. Their journal is filled with reminders that external status doesn't define their worth. As a result, they remain calm. They respond instead of react. They focus on the next move rather than the loss. Same situation, very different outcome. That's the power of a disciplined mind. Another example, imagine someone insults you publicly. The reactive mind gets angry, takes it personally, lashes out or retreats. But the Stoic mind pauses, reflects, asks, is what they said true? If it is, I should thank them for pointing it out. If it's false, why should it bother me? This is real power. Not the power to control others, but the power to control yourself. To hold your dignity even when others try to pull you down. And that's the kind of strength that no one can take from you. So how do you start integrating these Stoic techniques into your life? Here's a step-by-step approach you can begin today. Start your day with negative visualization. Spend just 2-3 minutes imagining how the day might go wrong. Missed buses, rude people, difficult clients. Then tell yourself, if this happens, I will respond with calm and reason. This prepares your mind and reduces emotional shock. End your day with a journal reflection. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I let emotions override reason? What will I do better tomorrow? Keep it simple, but honest. This daily habit compounds into greater clarity and self-control. Schedule one act of voluntary discomfort per week. Choose something small, skip a meal, take a cold shower, wake up earlier, or fast from your phone. Not to suffer, but to train. To remind yourself that you are tougher than your comforts. Watch your reactions in real time. Throughout the day, catch yourself in moments of anger, frustration, or anxiety. Pause and ask, what part of this is within my control? Just that single question can shift your perspective. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, commit to trying one of these techniques. Start journaling nightly, or begin each day with a 2-minute visualization, or pick a small discomfort and lean into it. Don't aim for perfection. Just aim for awareness. Watch how your mind begins to shift, how you become less reactive, more grounded, more in control. Because at the end of the day, your mind is your most powerful tool, but it can also be your greatest enemy if left undisciplined. The Stoics knew this. That's why they trained it daily, like a muscle. And if you're serious about self-development, about resilience, about living on your own terms, then this is where it all starts. Seneca's quote echoes once again. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. So why not train your imagination? Shape it, discipline it, turn it from a source of fear into a source of strength. That's what the Stoics did. That's what you can do, starting now. If there is one truth that Stoics and samurai shared without hesitation, it's this. Adversity is not the enemy, it's the training ground. It's the proving arena for your character. In fact, it's through struggle that you become who you are meant to be. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly. The obstacle is the way. Not something to avoid, not something to curse, but something to embrace, because it's in hardship that you learn patience. It's in failure that you learn resilience. It's when everything goes wrong that you discover the kind of person you really are. This wasn't just abstract philosophy from Marcus. He lived it. As Roman emperor during one of the most difficult periods in Rome's history, he was under relentless pressure. During his reign, the empire faced multiple plagues, constant warfare on its borders, famine, natural disasters, and betrayal from within. He lost children, close friends, and battled sickness himself. And yet, through all of it, he kept writing. He kept thinking. He kept leading. Not perfectly, but with steady, quiet, disciplined strength. He didn't ask for an easy life. He simply asked for the inner power to handle whatever life gave him. The same is true for Miyamoto Musashi. He didn't become the greatest swordsman in Japan because life was gentle with him. He became great because he put himself in real situations of adversity. By the end of his life, he had fought over 60 duels, each one a real fight, not practice, not theory. And he didn't win because he was lucky. He won because he was prepared. Relentlessly, obsessively, and deliberately prepared. He trained not just in swordsmanship, but in calmness under pressure. He knew that most people panic when things go wrong. Their minds get cloudy, their emotions take over. Musashi trained himself to do the opposite, to slow down when others sped up, to see clearly when others froze in fear. One of Musashi's most famous duels was against Sasaki Kojiro, a renowned swordsman with a reputation for speed and precision. They met on a small island for the duel, but Musashi arrived late, intentionally. He came with an oar he had carved into a wooden sword during the boat ride. Kojiro, angered and thrown off balance by the delay, charged with fury. Musashi stayed calm, analyzed his opponent's emotion, and struck decisively. One blow, victory. It wasn't brute strength, it wasn't clever trickery, it was mental discipline in action. He used his opponent's emotional reaction against him. That was Musashi's genius. His discipline allowed him to stay cool, strategic, and unshaken, even in a fight to the death. What both Marcus and Musashi understood is that adversity reveals your training. When things are going well, it's easy to talk about mindset, philosophy, and discipline. But when your plans collapse, when pressure hits, when life throws a punch you didn't expect, that's when it counts. That's when all the inner work either shows up or disappears. So here's the shift we all need to make. Stop wishing life was easier. Start training to be stronger. The Stoics didn't pray for perfect circumstances. They trained for any circumstances. Musashi didn't hope his enemies would be weak. He trained so that even against the best, he could remain calm and sharp. That's the mindset we all need today. Whether you're trying to build a business, recover from failure, deal with heartbreak, or face health issues, you don't control the storm. You do control how well you're prepared for it. And preparation doesn't have to be dramatic. It starts with your mindset. When something uncomfortable shows up, a delay, a rejection, a betrayal, don't complain. Ask, what is this here to teach me? That question changes everything. Suddenly, the obstacle isn't an interruption, it's an invitation. A chance to become more patient, more disciplined, more focused. If someone criticizes you unfairly, instead of reacting emotionally, ask, can I learn to stay composed? Can I use this to sharpen my emotional control? That's Stoic training. If a project fails, don't spiral. Ask, where did I go wrong? How can I come back smarter and stronger? You don't have to fight duels or lead an empire to apply this. Life hands you training opportunities every day. An unexpected bill? That's a chance to practice financial discipline. A long line at the store? That's patience training. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Emotional control practice. No one needs to see you react calmly, but you will know, and every time you do it, your mind gets stronger. Just like a muscle. And over time, that strength becomes natural. You don't need to fake calm, you become calm. You don't need to force resilience, you are resilient. But you have to be intentional. You can't wait until the crisis hits to start thinking like this. That's like trying to learn swordsmanship in the middle of a battle. You need to build the mindset now, during ordinary moments, so when extraordinary challenges come, you're ready. Here's a simple exercise to start with. Right now, list 3 personal obstacles you're facing. Maybe they're external, like debt, career setbacks, or relationship issues, or maybe they're internal, like self-doubt, laziness, or anxiety. Write them down, and for each one, answer this. How can I use this challenge to develop greater discipline? What can this difficulty teach me about persistence, patience, or problem solving? Then, create a disciplined action plan for each one. Not a dramatic plan, just a daily habit. Something small, repeatable, and clear. If your obstacle is poor health, your action might be 30 minutes of walking every morning. If your obstacle is anxiety, your action might be 10 minutes of journaling or breath work. If it's procrastination, maybe it's 90 minutes of focused work before checking your phone. Whatever it is, make it consistent. Don't wait for it to feel easy, just do it every day. That's how you build discipline through adversity. Because adversity isn't a curse, it's a crucible. It burns away weakness and reveals what's real. That's why Marcus said, the obstacle is the way. Not because he liked suffering, but because he understood that without obstacles, there is no growth. And Musashi? He didn't fear stronger opponents, he welcomed them, because with each challenge, he became sharper, faster, calmer. Life was his dojo. Every moment was practice. And the same is true for you. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Use this moment. Use your frustration, your setbacks, your challenges. Train with them. Respond to them with purpose. Because every time you face something hard with discipline, you move closer to mastery, closer to freedom. That's the path. That's the way. The obstacle is the way. And if you truly want to grow, don't run from the hard things. Walk straight into them with your head clear, your breath steady, and your discipline sharpened like a blade. One of the most dangerous forces we face in the modern world isn't violence, chaos, or disaster, it's distraction. Quiet, subtle, invisible, yet powerful enough to derail entire lives. You set a goal, You start a project, you make a promise to yourself. But then, a notification buzzes. You check your phone, you scroll for a few minutes, then a few more. An hour slips away, the energy is gone, the motivation is lost, and slowly, your life becomes filled not with meaningful progress, but with mental clutter. This is self-sabotage in its most common form, not dramatic destruction, but the slow, passive erosion of your focus. Miyamoto Musashi warned us about this centuries ago. He wrote, "Do not indulge the body, it becomes demanding. Do not indulge the mind, it becomes unruly." He wasn't talking about torture or punishment. He was talking about discipline, the ability to deny yourself short-term pleasure in order to protect long-term power. Because if you give your body everything it wants, comfort, food, entertainment, it starts expecting it. It starts needing it. And the same goes for your mind. If you let it jump from one distraction to the next, if you feed it constant stimulation, it stops being able to focus. It becomes chaotic, restless, weak. And once your mind becomes weak, discipline becomes almost impossible. Let's be honest, most of us don't fail because of lack of knowledge. We know what to do. We fail because we're constantly pulled away from doing it. By a screen, by a craving, by a just 5 more minutes. Distractions don't feel dangerous in the moment, but over time they become chains. They trap you in a cycle of wasted time and half-finished goals. You promise yourself you'll focus tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes because you're not dealing with the real enemy, the absence of focus. Discipline is how you fight back, but it's not about brute force or beating yourself up. It's about being intentional. Both Stoics and samurai knew that the mind could only be sharpened through simplicity and repetition. The Stoics believed in mastering the mind through reflection, awareness, and control over attention. The samurai trained in silence, in solitude, in removing everything that wasn't useful. They didn't waste energy on excess. They cut away the unnecessary to keep their edge. We need that same mindset today. In a world engineered to hijack your attention, being focused is not just helpful, it's heroic. Think about how much more powerful you'd be if you could reclaim even half the time you waste on mindless scrolling or impulsive distraction. That time adds up, and it's not just the minutes, it's the mental residue. Every time you switch tasks, your focus weakens. Every time you give in to distraction, your discipline erodes. But when you protect your attention, when you learn to resist the urge to escape discomfort, you start building real strength. Here's the good news. Your brain is trainable. You can rewire your focus, but you have to give it the right environment. One of the most effective strategies is deep work, a concept popularized by Cal Newport, but rooted deeply in Stoic and samurai principles. Deep work is about setting aside blocks of time where you work without any distractions. No phone, no internet tabs, just one task, full presence. This is how masterpieces are made, not in multitasking chaos, but in disciplined, deliberate attention. If you want to try this, start small. Block out just 90 minutes a day. Choose your most important task: writing, building, studying, thinking. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room. Use noise-canceling headphones if you need to. And then, just do the work. Don't wait to feel like it. Don't give in to discomfort. Just sit, breathe, and focus. It will be hard at first. Your brain will try to escape. But if you stick with it, something incredible happens. You enter flow. You tap into clarity. You build something real. And over time, this becomes your new normal. Another method is digital minimalism. This doesn't mean deleting every app or becoming a monk. It means designing your digital life with intention. Audit your phone. Ask yourself, what apps actually serve me? Which ones just distract me? Remove the ones you don't need. Set limits on social media. Disable non-essential notifications. Create rules for your screen time. For example, no phone during the first hour of the day, or no checking email after 8 p.m. These little boundaries create massive clarity. They return your attention to you instead of giving it away to algorithms. You can also use environmental design, to support your discipline. The Stoics understood that we become what we practice. So instead of constantly battling temptation, eliminate it. If you want to read more, put books where you can see them. If you want to stop snacking, don't buy the junk food. If you want to meditate, create a space that invites calm. Structure your surroundings so that the easiest choice is the right one. That's not weakness, that's smart discipline. Temptations will never fully disappear, but you can make them easier to resist. One strategy is the 10-minute rule. When you feel the urge to check your phone, scroll, or quit a task, wait 10 minutes. Don't judge yourself. Just sit with the discomfort. Most of the time, the urge fades. You've trained your brain not to obey every impulse, and that's the win. Not perfection, but pause, awareness, control. Another powerful tool is creating a ritual of intentionality before doing anything important. Before you start a task, pause for 30 seconds. Breathe, set your intention. Ask, what am I about to do? Why does it matter? This small moment of clarity can prevent hours of unconscious distraction. The Stoics did this. They prepared their minds before battle, before conversation, before action. They knew, a disciplined mind begins with a deliberate thought. So here's your challenge. Try a digital detox day. One full day, no social media, no unnecessary screen time. Use your phone only for essential communication. Spend the rest of the day reading, thinking, writing, moving your body, or doing something that strengthens your mind. Notice how different you feel, how much more space your mind has, how much calmer your thoughts become. Even one day can reset your brain. And once you've done that, experiment with focused time blocks during your week. Carve out daily windows, 90 minutes, 2 hours, even just 45 minutes, where you give your full attention to something meaningful. Protect that time like a samurai protects his sword, because it is your sword. Your attention is your most powerful tool. Don't waste it on noise. Use it to build, to grow, to deepen your life. Remember what Musashi said, do not indulge the mind, it becomes unruly. That doesn't mean never rest, it means rest with intention, focus with intention, live with intention, because in a world full of distractions, the person who can stay focused, even for an hour, is unstoppable. Self-sabotage isn't just about failure. It's about all the things we could have done but didn't. All the time we lost to distractions. All the energy we gave away to things that didn't matter. But the good news is, you can change that. One day, one decision, one focus block at a time. So start today. Try the detox. Try the focus block. Start training your mind like a warrior. Because freedom doesn't come from giving in to every impulse. It comes from mastering them. That's the discipline. That's the way. Discipline isn't just a tactic. It's not something you pull out only when things get tough. Real discipline, the kind that transforms your life, is a way of being. It's something you carry with you into everything. How you wake up, how you eat, how you work, how you speak, how you rest. It's not about being rigid or joyless. It's about living with intention, clarity, and purpose every single day. It's about asking yourself, what really matters? And then having the courage to strip everything else away. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry put it, perfection is achieved, not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. That's the heart of minimalist discipline. Not adding more to your life, but removing what's not essential until what remains is strong, focused, and free. Marcus Aurelius lived this way. Despite being emperor of the most powerful empire in the world, he didn't live lavishly. He didn't chase pleasure or status. His writings and meditations are shockingly humble. He reminds himself to wake up early, to serve others, to resist anger, to stay grounded. He didn't need to write those things. He was the ruler of Rome, but he did it anyway, every day, because he understood that without continuous self-discipline, the mind decays. It wanders. It forgets what matters. And Marcus didn't want to forget. He wanted to live every day in accordance with reason, duty, and virtue. Not as a philosopher on a pedestal, but as a man in the world. That's what makes his discipline so powerful. It wasn't abstract, it was daily. Miyamoto Musashi, too, embodied this philosophy in action. By the end of his life, he had given up everything unnecessary. He lived alone, trained constantly, and rejected comfort. Not because he hated pleasure, but because he understood that comfort dulls the blade. He wanted to stay sharp, focused, clear. His book, The Book of Five Rings, wasn't just about sword fighting, it was about life. He wrote about mindset, simplicity, and strategy, about approaching every moment with total presence and intention. His life was a masterpiece of minimalist discipline, and not because he had less, but because he needed less. So how do we bring this kind of disciplined simplicity into our lives today? We're not emperors or samurai. We live in a world of chaos, notifications, obligations, endless noise. But that's exactly why this mindset is so important now more than ever. The more chaotic your world is, the more essential your discipline becomes. Start with your finances. How much of your spending is driven by impulse? How much is actually aligned with your values? Most people spend money not to meet needs, but to escape discomfort. We shop when we're bored, we chase status through objects, but minimalist discipline flips that mindset. It says, buy less, spend with intention, save more than you think you need. Because financial freedom isn't about having everything, it's about needing less. About building a life where your peace doesn't depend on your next paycheck or your next upgrade. Track your spending, cut out the excess, focus on what truly adds value. That's financial discipline. Next, think about your health. You don't need a perfect diet or a six-pack. What you need is consistency. You need a few simple habits: eating whole foods, moving your body daily, getting sleep. And you need to repeat them for the rest of your life. No extremes, no gimmicks, just sustainable practices. A 30-minute walk every day does more than a month of intense workouts you'll quit by next week. Small habits, repeated with discipline, become unstoppable. Musashi didn't become a master through a single burst of effort. He practiced endlessly. So can you. What about your relationships? Discipline matters here too. It's about being present, about choosing quality over quantity. It means showing up when it's hard, listening when you'd rather speak, staying honest when it's uncomfortable. Modern life tempts us to spread our energy thin, to be connected to everyone but deeply close to no one. Minimalist discipline in relationships means simplifying. Fewer distractions, fewer games, more depth, more intention. You don't need hundreds of people in your life. You need a few strong connections built through consistent effort and clarity. And then there's your mental space, your time, your attention. This is where minimalist discipline shines brightest. Most people fill their days with noise, emails, podcasts, social media, background chatter. They don't realize that attention is a finite resource. Every time you give it away to something meaningless, you rob yourself of clarity. Try this. Simplify your inputs. Unsubscribe from junk. Delete the apps that don't serve you. Stop scrolling endlessly. Create pockets of silence in your day. Let your mind breathe, because when you quiet the noise, your real thoughts come through. Your real priorities become visible. Now, a lot of people hear this and worry about burnout. They think discipline means working 16 hours a day, grinding non-stop, pushing themselves to the edge. That's not what we're talking about here. Sustainable discipline is different. It's not about intensity, it's about rhythm, about knowing when to push and when to rest, when to say yes and when to walk away. Aurelius rested, Musashi meditated and painted. They understood that a disciplined life includes recovery. So don't burn yourself out. Build a balanced system. Make room for rest, for joy, for reflection. Just make sure those moments are intentional, not escapes, but part of your rhythm. Think of discipline not as a restriction, but as a form of love. You brush your teeth every day, not because it's exciting, but because you care about your long-term health. You budget not because you hate money, but because you respect your future. You train your body not out of vanity, but out of self-respect. Every disciplined act is a way of saying, I'm building something that lasts. And the more you repeat those acts, the more natural they become. Eventually, you don't even think about them. They just are. Here's your call to action. Choose one major area of your life to simplify and discipline. Just one. Maybe it's your morning routine, your phone usage, your eating habits, your spending. Pick the one that feels most out of alignment right now, the one that creates the most friction, and apply minimalist discipline to it. Strip away the excess, focus on what works, and then stick with it. Not for a week, not for a challenge, but as a lifestyle, as a philosophy. Because in the end, discipline is not something you check off a list. It's something you live. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional, every day, in every area. Like Aurelius, like Musashi, quietly, consistently, powerfully. You don't need more. You need less, but better. Less distraction, less noise, less chaos, more purpose, more clarity, more strength. Discipline gives you that, not someday, not in some distant perfect future, but now. In this moment, in the way you choose to live your next hour, your next task, your next breath. So live simply, live clearly, live with discipline, not because you have to, but because you choose to. That's the way of the Stoic. That's the way of the samurai. And it can be your way too.